If you've been eating this supposedly healthy vegetable thinking you're doing your body a favor, you need to hear this right now. Just last month, I had a patient rush to the emergency room at 3 in the morning, doubled over in pain, unable to stand up straight. Her abdomen was so distended she looked 6 months pregnant, and the pain was so intense she thought something had ruptured inside her. The culprit? A vegetable that nutritionists constantly recommend that's sitting in most of our refrigerators right now, and that millions of people eat every single day thinking they're making the healthiest choice possible. I'm Dr. Helen Brooks, a board-certified gastroenterologist with over 15 years of clinical experience treating digestive disorders. I've seen thousands of patients walk through my office doors, many of them suffering from symptoms they never connected to their diet, especially not to foods they considered completely harmless. Before we dive deeper into this, if you haven't subscribed yet, I strongly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Now let me tell you about Margaret, a 68-year-old retired teacher who came to see me absolutely devastated. She'd always been health conscious, never smoked, rarely drank alcohol, exercised regularly by walking every morning. About 6 months before our appointment, she decided to take her health even more seriously. She read articles, watched health videos, and decided to dramatically increase her vegetable intake. Sounds perfect, right? That's what she thought too. Margaret started adding massive amounts of cruciferous vegetables to every meal: broccoli with breakfast eggs, cauliflower rice for lunch, Brussels sprouts with dinner. Within 2 weeks, her life became miserable. She told me, tears in her eyes, "Dr. Brooks, I can't even go to my book club anymore. The bloating is so bad I have to unbutton my pants by noon, and the gas is so embarrassing I'm afraid to be around people." She'd stopped going to her grandchildren's soccer games, declined dinner invitations, and was becoming increasingly isolated, all because she was trying to be healthier. What Margaret didn't understand, and what most people don't realize, is that cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and kale contain a specific type of carbohydrate called raffinose. Our bodies lack the enzyme needed to properly break down raffinose in the small intestine. So what happens? This undigested carbohydrate travels to the large intestine, where bacteria ferment it, producing large amounts of gas as a byproduct. For some people, especially those over 60, or with sensitive digestive systems, this can create absolutely debilitating symptoms. The gas production isn't just uncomfortable, it's medically significant. When excessive gas builds up in the intestinal tract, it causes distension, stretching the intestinal walls. This stretching triggers pain receptors, creating cramping that can range from mild discomfort to severe incapacitating pain. The bloating can be so pronounced that it affects breathing, creates pressure on other organs, and significantly impacts quality of life. But here's what makes this particularly tricky. Cruciferous vegetables also contain high amounts of fiber and sulfur-containing compounds called glucosinolates. While these compounds have tremendous health benefits, including anti-cancer properties, they can also intensify digestive symptoms. The sulfur compounds are what create that distinctive smell associated with these vegetables, and they're also what makes the gas produced from eating them particularly pungent and embarrassing. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, comment below to show you're with me. Trust me, understanding this could change your relationship with food entirely. Let me share another case that really illustrates the severity of this issue. I treated a 72-year-old man named Robert, a retired accountant who prided himself on his disciplined lifestyle. After his annual physical showed slightly elevated cholesterol, his well-meaning daughter, a nutritionist, convinced him to follow what she called a super green diet. Every single meal featured cruciferous vegetables in huge portions. She told him these were the healthiest vegetables on the planet, which, to be fair, they are incredibly nutrient-dense. Within 3 weeks, Robert's life was consumed by digestive distress. He described waking up at night with such severe bloating that he couldn't lie flat. The pressure in his abdomen was so intense, he thought he was having a heart attack on 2 separate occasions and went to the emergency room. Both times, after extensive cardiac workup, everything came back normal. The emergency physicians gave him antacids and sent him home. Nobody asked about his diet. When Robert finally came to my office, he looked exhausted and defeated. He said, Dr. Brooks, I'm doing everything right. I'm eating healthier than I ever have in my life, but I feel worse than when I was eating pizza and burgers. This is something I hear constantly in my practice. People doing what they think is right, following advice they read online or hear from friends, but their bodies are telling them something completely different. I ordered some tests for Robert, including a hydrogen breath test, which measures the gases produced when bacteria ferment undigested carbohydrates in the colon. His results were off the charts. His gut bacteria were having an absolute feast on all those cruciferous vegetables, producing enormous amounts of hydrogen and methane gas. No wonder he felt like he was going to explode. Here's what's really important to understand. This isn't about these vegetables being bad or unhealthy. They're extraordinarily nutritious, packed with vitamins C and K, folate, fiber, and those cancer-fighting compounds I mentioned earlier. The problem is quantity, preparation, and individual tolerance. What works beautifully for one person's digestive system can be absolutely disastrous for another's. As we age, our digestive systems naturally become less efficient. Enzyme production decreases, stomach acid levels drop, gut motility slows down, and the bacterial composition in our intestines changes. All of these factors make us more susceptible to digestive issues from foods we may have tolerated perfectly well when we were younger. This is why someone might eat broccoli without any problems in their 30s and 40s, but suddenly develop severe symptoms in their 60s and 70s. There's also a condition called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, which becomes more common as we age. In SIBO, bacteria that normally live in the large intestine migrate backward into the small intestine. When someone with SIBO eats foods high in fermentable carbohydrates, including cruciferous vegetables, the bacteria in the small intestine ferment these foods, causing bloating, pain, and gas much more quickly and severely than normal. Many of my older patients have undiagnosed SIBO, and cruciferous vegetables become their absolute worst enemy. But wait, because if you thought that was concerning, let me tell you about the overnight aspect that makes this particularly dangerous for some people. I had a patient named Dorothy, a vibrant 75-year-old retired nurse who understood health better than most. She came to me after a terrifying experience that landed her in the hospital. Dorothy had attended a dinner party where the host served a beautiful vegetable medley, heavy on roasted Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. Dorothy, trying to be a good guest and eat healthy, had generous portions. She felt fine during dinner, maybe slightly full, but nothing alarming. She went to bed around 10 that evening. At 2 in the morning, she woke up in excruciating pain. Her abdomen was rigid and distended, she was sweating, nauseous, and the pain was so severe she could barely move. Her husband called an ambulance, terrified she was having some kind of catastrophic abdominal event. In the emergency room, the doctors initially suspected everything from a bowel obstruction to a perforated ulcer. They did CT scans, blood work, the full workup. The scans showed her intestines massively dilated with gas. No obstruction, no perforation. Just an enormous amount of gas trapped in her digestive system. The doctor who eventually reviewed her case with me said her colon was so distended it looked like it might burst. The medical term for this is acute colonic pseudo-obstruction. And while it's rare, it can be triggered by excessive gas production from fermentable foods, especially in older adults. What happened to Dorothy overnight is actually quite common on a less severe scale. When we eat cruciferous vegetables, especially in large amounts or later in the day, the fermentation process intensifies during the night. This happens because when we lie down, our digestive system slows down even more. Gas that might normally pass during the day gets trapped. The horizontal position makes it harder for gas to move through the intestinal tract, and it accumulates, creating pressure and pain that peaks in those early morning hours. Dorothy spent 2 days in the hospital on bowel rest, meaning she couldn't eat anything, receiving IV fluids and medications to help her intestines relax and expel the gas. She told me later, with absolute conviction, "Dr. Brooks, I thought I was dying. The pain was worse than childbirth. All from vegetables I thought were good for me." The timing aspect is crucial. Our digestive systems have what's called a circadian rhythm, just like our sleep-wake cycle. Digestive enzyme production, gut motility, and even the activity of our gut bacteria follow predictable patterns throughout the day. Generally, our digestive system is most active and efficient earlier in the day and slows down significantly in the evening and overnight. This is why eating difficult-to-digest foods, including large amounts of cruciferous vegetables, in the evening is particularly problematic. Additionally, when we're asleep, we're not moving around. Movement and physical activity help move gas through the digestive tract. When we're lying still for 7 or 8 hours, gas accumulates much more readily, creating that morning bloating and discomfort that so many people experience but never connect to their dinner from the night before. Now, I want to talk about another aspect that makes this even more complicated. Many cruciferous vegetables, particularly when eaten raw or lightly cooked, contain compounds called goitrogens. These substances can interfere with thyroid function, especially in people who already have thyroid issues or are iodine deficient. Hypothyroidism is extremely common in older adults, and it slows down the entire digestive system even further. So if you have someone with underactive thyroid eating large amounts of raw kale or broccoli, you're creating a perfect storm for severe digestive distress. I treated a 65-year-old woman named Patricia, who was a perfect example of this. She'd been diagnosed with mild hypothyroidism and was on thyroid medication. Wanting to be healthier, she started drinking green smoothies every morning, packed with raw kale, raw broccoli, and raw cabbage. Within a month, she came to me with worsening thyroid symptoms and digestive issues that were ruining her life. Her thyroid medication wasn't working as well because the goitrogens were interfering, and her gut was in absolute rebellion against the massive load of raw cruciferous vegetables. Patricia described feeling like she had a balloon inflating inside my stomach every single morning within an hour of her smoothie. She'd have to rush to the bathroom multiple times, experiencing both constipation and diarrhea, which seems contradictory but is actually quite common with this type of digestive upset. The gas was so severe and painful that she started taking over-the-counter gas medications like they were candy, which only made things worse by disrupting her gut bacteria even more. What Patricia needed wasn't more medication. She needed to understand that raw cruciferous vegetables in large quantities were simply too much for her digestive system to handle, especially with her thyroid condition. Once we modified her diet, cooking her vegetables thoroughly and drastically reducing the quantity, and spacing them out rather than having them all at once, her symptoms resolved almost completely within 2 weeks. This brings me to an absolutely critical point about preparation methods. How you prepare cruciferous vegetables makes an enormous difference in how digestible they are. Raw cruciferous vegetables are the most difficult to digest and produce the most gas. Steaming or boiling them helps break down some of the tough fibers and reduces the goitrogen content significantly. Fermentation, like in sauerkraut or kimchi, can actually improve digestibility for some people because beneficial bacteria have already started breaking down the compounds that cause problems. But here's the catch. Even cooked cruciferous vegetables can cause severe problems if you eat too much too quickly, especially if your system isn't used to them. I see this all the time. Someone reads about the health benefits of these vegetables and goes from eating them once a week to eating them 3 times a day. The gut simply cannot adapt that quickly. I want to tell you about one more patient because his story illustrates the psychological toll this takes. James was a 70-year-old retired businessman, very social, very active in his community. He started following a plant-based diet that was extremely heavy in cruciferous vegetables because he'd read they were the healthiest foods on earth. Within weeks, the bloating and gas became so problematic that he started avoiding all social situations. James told me, and I'll never forget this, "Dr. Brooks, I'm afraid to leave my house. I never know when I'm going to need a bathroom urgently, or when the gas is going to be so bad I'll embarrass myself. I've started declining invitations to everything. My wife thinks I'm depressed, but really I'm just terrified of my own body." This is what broke my heart. Here was a man who was trying so hard to be healthy, following all the advice he'd read, and it was destroying his quality of life and isolating him from everyone he cared about. When I explained to James what was happening in his digestive system, he was almost angry. "Why doesn't anyone talk about this?" he asked. "All I ever hear is eat more vegetables, eat more vegetables. Nobody mentions that they can make you miserable." And he's absolutely right. The conversation around healthy eating often lacks nuance. We present foods as universally good or bad, without acknowledging that individual tolerance varies enormously, and that even the healthiest foods can cause problems in certain quantities or situations. So what's the solution? Because I'm not saying you should never eat cruciferous vegetables. They're too nutritious, too beneficial to eliminate entirely unless you have a specific medical reason to do so. The key is understanding your own tolerance, preparing them properly, and consuming them strategically. First, start small and increase gradually. If you're not used to eating cruciferous vegetables regularly, don't suddenly start eating them at every meal. Add small portions once or twice a week and see how your body responds. Give your digestive system time to adapt. This is particularly important for older adults whose digestive systems are less flexible. Second, always cook them thoroughly. Raw cruciferous vegetables are the hardest to digest. Steaming, roasting, or sautéing them breaks down the tough cell walls and makes them much gentler on your gut. The longer you cook them, the more digestible they become. Yes, you lose some vitamin C with extended cooking, but if the alternative is severe digestive distress, it's absolutely worth it. Third, eat them earlier in the day, not at dinner. Give your body time to digest them while your digestive system is most active and while you're moving around. Eating large amounts of cruciferous vegetables at dinner and then lying down a few hours later is asking for trouble, especially overnight symptoms. Fourth, consider digestive enzymes. There are over-the-counter enzyme supplements that can help break down the specific carbohydrates in cruciferous vegetables, reducing gas production. Alpha-galactosidase is the enzyme that breaks down raffinose, and taking it with meals containing these vegetables can help significantly. But talk to your doctor first, especially if you're on other medications. Fifth, pay attention to portion sizes. Even cooked, even eaten at the right time of day, too much is too much. A reasonable portion is about half a cup to 1 cup per meal, not 3 cups. More is not always better, especially with foods that are difficult to digest. Sixth, combine them with easier to digest foods. Don't make an entire meal out of just cruciferous vegetables. Pair them with well-cooked proteins, easy-to-digest grains, or other vegetables that don't cause fermentation. This dilutes their impact on your digestive system. Seventh, stay well hydrated. Fiber needs water to move through your digestive system properly. If you're eating high-fiber vegetables without adequate water intake, you're setting yourself up for constipation and bloating. And finally, listen to your body. If certain cruciferous vegetables consistently cause you problems, limit them or avoid them. There are plenty of other vegetables that provide excellent nutrition without the digestive distress. Leafy greens like spinach and lettuce, root vegetables like carrots and sweet potatoes, squashes, zucchini, bell peppers, all of these are nutrient-dense and generally much easier on the digestive system. I also want to address something really important. If you're experiencing severe persistent bloating and digestive pain, don't just assume it's from vegetables and ignore it. These symptoms can also indicate more serious conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, celiac disease, ovarian masses in women, or even colorectal cancer. Any significant change in your digestive symptoms, especially if accompanied by weight loss, blood in stool, or severe pain, needs to be evaluated by a physician. For Margaret, the retired teacher I mentioned at the beginning, once we identified the problem and modified her diet, her life transformed. She still eats cruciferous vegetables, but now she has small portions of well-cooked broccoli or cauliflower 2 or 3 times a week, always at lunch, never at dinner. She's back at her book club, back at her grandchildren's games, and she told me recently, "I feel like I have my life back." I was so miserable, and the solution was so simple once I understood what was happening. Robert, the retired accountant with the severe nighttime symptoms, also recovered completely. We cut way back on the quantity of cruciferous vegetables, made sure he cooked them thoroughly, and had him eat them only at breakfast or lunch. We also treated his underlying SIBO with a course of antibiotics, which made an enormous difference. He still eats a very healthy diet, still includes some cruciferous vegetables, but in amounts his body can actually handle. Dorothy, who had the emergency room visit, became very cautious about evening meals. She avoids all cruciferous vegetables after 3 in the afternoon and keeps her portions small even when she does eat them. She hasn't had another episode like that terrifying night, and she's become an advocate among her friends for understanding food tolerances. And James, the man who'd become socially isolated, gradually rebuilt his confidence as his symptoms resolved. We worked together to find a balance where he could follow a healthy, plant-based diet without the cruciferous vegetables dominating every meal. He learned that there are dozens of other vegetables that provided the nutrition he needed without the digestive chaos. He's back to being social, back to enjoying meals with friends, and he recently told me that understanding his own body's limits was more empowering than any diet plan could ever be. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Healthy eating is not one size fits all. Foods that are universally considered healthy can still cause significant problems for individuals based on their unique digestive system, their age, their gut bacteria composition, underlying health conditions, and how much they eat. The key is paying attention to how your body responds to different foods and being willing to adjust even when that food is supposed to be good for you. If you're experiencing bloating, gas, or abdominal pain, especially if it worsens overnight or in the early morning hours, look carefully at your cruciferous vegetable intake. Are you eating them in large quantities? Are you eating them raw? Are you eating them at dinner? Any of these factors could be contributing to your symptoms. Don't be afraid to experiment with reducing or eliminating them temporarily to see if your symptoms improve. If they do, you've identified a trigger. Then you can slowly reintroduce them in smaller amounts, well cooked, earlier in the day, and see what your personal tolerance level is. And please, if you're making major dietary changes, especially if you're over 60, consider consulting with a gastroenterologist or a registered dietitian who specializes in digestive health. They can help you navigate these changes in a way that maximizes nutrition while minimizing digestive distress. They can also test for underlying conditions like SIBO, food intolerances, or enzyme deficiencies that might be contributing to your symptoms. Remember, the goal of healthy eating is to nourish your body and feel good, not to follow rigid rules that make you miserable. If a food, even a supposedly super healthy food, is causing you significant discomfort and affecting your quality of life, it's okay to limit it or find alternatives. Your well-being matters more than any dietary trend or nutrition recommendation. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced digestive issues from vegetables you thought were healthy? What symptoms did you have? Drop your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same issues and doesn't know what's causing them. And if you found this information helpful, please hit that like button and share this video with anyone you know who's dealing with unexplained bloating or digestive discomfort. Sometimes the answer to our health problems is simpler than we think, but we need the right information to figure it out. Most importantly, don't suffer in silence. If you're experiencing persistent digestive symptoms, talk to your doctor. Keep a food diary to identify patterns between what you eat and how you feel. Be an advocate for your own health, and don't be afraid to question conventional wisdom when your body is telling you something different. Your digestive health is fundamental to your overall well-being, your energy levels, your ability to absorb nutrients, and your quality of life. You deserve to feel comfortable in your own body, and understanding how different foods affect you personally is a crucial step in achieving that comfort. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, listen to your body, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue exploring how to optimize your health in ways that actually work for you as an individual. Until then, be well.